Hi, I'm Mike Yannessa. Welcome to another episode of Car Stories. I'm here at the Pottstown Historical Society, and tonight we're going to talk about the cars, the garages, and all the history in Pottstown of the automobile. So stay tuned for another episode. Hi everybody, my name is Mike Yannessa. Like Debbie said, I have a story on PCTV called Car Stories, and I travel to different places, and I sometimes have it in my shop. I talk about repairing your cars today. I talk about old cars. So if you get a chance, watch it. It's always on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock, and it rotates. Like sometimes it's on Saturday morning, Friday afternoon. He throws it in wherever he can fit it in. And I started about 4 years ago because Gus and I went to school together, and he asked me to start this show, and it really took off. A lot of people like it because it's informative and it's different. And tonight, Debbie asked me to come here and speak at the Historical Society about some of Pottstown's history on cars. But we don't have hours and hours, so I'll try to do my best in the time we have. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in Pottstown out in the North End. I graduated Pottstown High School under John Horosky. I worked as a mechanic all my life. I started my own business when I was 20 years old at Ring and Hill, Sunoco. And I moved from there to Farmington and Wilson. And I moved from there to 11 Bud's Transmission on Farmington Avenue. So I have 38 years in the business. I'm well versed in bodywork and mechanical on old cars and new cars. So being from Pottstown, I grew up when Deb talked about Potts and Penn Diner and when it was Dempsey's, and cruising was the thing to do on a Friday night. Unfortunately, that isn't anymore, but we still try to have the car shows here. And there's still a lot of history of a lot of car people in Pottstown. I have people come from out of town and they're just amazed at the quality of cars and the people that, the shows and the activities with old cars. Boyertown Museum being one place that you have to go see because it's local history, Berks County, of the automobile, horse and buggy, and you would enjoy it even if you're not a real car person because of the history. The diner from Fegley's Diner up in Mount Penn is now in the museum, perfectly restored. And I restored a 1921 Sunoco gas station with the glass pumps and the kerosene tank, and that's right aside the diner. And that I did, I guess, about 5 years ago myself, and I just really enjoyed that. I'm a history nut. I have an old house, old cars, so I like this place. When I was a kid, this was Christman's, Christmas shop, right? Flower shop, okay, always remember Santa Claus out front, And one of my first jobs in the automobile business was Bart Sunoco right here, right down the street when I was 16 years old. Always liked cars, grew up in the North End, like I said. I was detailing cars at the age of 8 for $3 to $5. My dad worked at Dana, and he'd bring his friends' cars to me, and I'd clean them up, and then they'd come after work and pick them up. So I've been doing it, like I said, all my life. I worked at Slack Shack when I was in high school, when I was 15, 16 years old, and they actually offered me a store up at the Berkshire Mall, and I turned it down for $4 an hour, which was, and went to pump gas at Bart Sunoco for I think $2.85, because I knew that the car thing was what I was going to do. So it's a little bit of history on me and where I came from, and like I said, I saw that we had a meeting a month or two ago about Pottstown and stuff, and very few of those people are from Pottstown. They're people that moved into the area. So I remember all these not all of them. Some of them are too old for me, but I remember a lot of these gas stations and a lot of the car dealerships, and I know some of you guys do too. I was telling someone the other day that Subway was the showroom for Tyson Pontiac Cadillac when I was a kid, and all the good used cars were under the building. And my dad knew Joe Miller, the salesman, and we were privileged enough to be able to go under the building to look at the good used cars, because the really nice trade-ins they kept under the building. And it's just, when you go buy it today, it's still the same. The glass windows and stuff are still the same as it was back then. And this whole strip, as a lot of you guys know, was automotive. We had Studebaker, we had Chevrolet, we had Oldsmobile, we had Nagle Dodge, which we have a picture of up here. And this was the place to buy all the way up through Stowe at Cates and Becker Ford and the AMC dealership, Tony and Jeans. AMC dealership. And today, it amazes me, that being in this business, that we put all the car dealerships in one location off the beaten path. You know, I guess back in the old days, we'd drive by the dealership and see that red convertible, or your wife would see that red convertible, and you'd wind up going to buy it. Nowadays, there's no, they go there to buy a car and they pick one out kind of like you pick out a refrigerator. It's not the same. You know, but from a marketing end of it, you know, I don't quite understand how they do so well with these dealerships off of 422 that this seems like the place to showcase your automobiles. But that's all left. We all know a lot of industry left Pottstown, but we're all trying very hard to, you know, to bring it back. I myself, if everyone knows, I bought the old Dame Chevrolet, Kaisers Chevrolet building about 4 years ago. And in that building, we do auto body and auto repairs. And spent some money on the building fixing it up. I love it. Our business is good, but we need other businesses to do the same thing on High Street, which I'm hoping and praying that you know, everything is going to move, you know, forward in a positive way. So anyhow, we got some really cool pictures here tonight. It's going to be hard for you guys to see them, so when you watch the show, you'll be able to see them better because Matt will zoom in on them and show you some of the details. But this gas station here is, I got to read to make sure I don't get it wrong, Hartmans Atlantic, which was at High in York. And it's right now, I believe, where the Borough Hall is. It was on the corner, and if I'm not mistaken, when I was a kid, it was already closed, and it was a Mary McIntosh dry cleaner, because a friend of our family worked there. Hartmans Atlantic service station. Like I said, I know it's hard for you to see. My dad actually pumped gas there before he went into the Army in 1942. But just really cool if you look at the details of it. You know, the old days when they washed your windows and checked your oil and green stamps and all that stuff. Esso station here was at Beach and Penn, and now it's the St. Al's building, which I believe, if I'm close, used to be Big A Auto Parts. And this gas station, which was named Wolf's Garage, we have several pictures of that one, Esso. When I was in the gasoline business myself for 17 years. There was 28 gas stations in Pottstown, and don't quote me, but I believe 11 or 12 of them were Texacos, because I was a Texaco. And I saw the writing on the wall that the little dealer was going to be pushed out, and the big company-owned stations and the Wawas and that type of thing. Now, if you look today in Pottstown, I mean, I guess the oldest dealer who's still in it, when I was in it, is Terry Embody. And I think that's about it as far as gasoline dealers, if anybody can think of anyone. I mean, but back in the day, it was quite a few of us that made a living off of selling gas and doing service, and it brought your customers in. You know, you get an inspection or a tire sale because they came in for gas. But now, most of those are selling, you know, lottery tickets and cigarettes and stuff. There's no automotive service at the service station like that, you know, where the owner would pump your gas and so forth. And dealerships. There was dealerships all over Pottstown, and when they displayed the cars, I have to find the right picture for you guys. When they displayed the cars, they were on the street. This is a bunch of, I'm thinking they're Model Ts, but you know, I could be wrong, but I'm not back there it gets a little blurry when you go back that far. But this, about in 1910, I mean, that's what they look like, but they could be something, they kind of all looked alike even back then. This is Hanover Street, right before the railroad tracks, which used to be Harp's Taxi, and now it's, Myers Automotive. That's right. Yeah, how you doing? You know that guy? Yep. So you got to have that picture. You got to get a picture of that. I'm sure Deb will sell it to you, right? But really, really cool. That would be South Hanover Street, and the barbershop's still there. If you go by, the barbershop in that picture, still the same. It's amazing, you know. This, Gallagher's Brother Texaco, which is over the bridge right where the mini golf is now. That was a Texaco. Now, I'm not sure, you guys may be able to tell me, but I remember Gallagher Brothers, they're on the Y at Farmington and Hanover. That's the same. Okay. So apparently at some point they moved from here, and boy, in the in the late 70s, I know they were on the Y at Hanover and Farmington Avenue. But did you straighten me out here? Which one is this now? King Street Garage. King Street Garage, which is what? We're thinking near the Mercury?
No, it was in the Buttonwood Alley.
It was in Buttonwood Alley. It was actually, oh yeah, okay, so it accessed from the alley. My first mechanical garage, I should say that, my first mechanical job was at Pottstown Honda Subaru, which is now McDonald's, which before that was Nagle Dodge. And we do have a picture of that too. Dave, if you have that one, I would see if you can find it. There's a picture of Nagle Dodge, which was a big Dodge dealer right down here in High Street. And you guys, if you remember the Superbirds, the ones that everybody wants today with the big wing and the big nose, I remember like 7 of those Superbirds on the front line, and they couldn't sell them. They couldn't sell them. Nobody wanted that. The wing on the back of the car, well, if the trunk was here, the wing was this high. And actually, at Ludwig Motors sold the Plymouth version. They actually took 2 of them and took the nose and the wing off, and they laid in the parts room for years. And they turned them back into regular Chargers and Roadrunners because nobody wanted that. I mean, that, and I remember as a kid, that wing today is ridiculous looking. But in 1969, it was just over the top. But yeah, Nagle Motors was a big dealership down where McDonald's is to now. Now, I spoke about Subway. That was Tyson Pontiac Cadillac. And then in between that was the Rosedale Diner, okay? And then Nagle Dodge. There was a gas station and then Nagle Dodge. And my mom worked at the Rosedale Diner way back when, and he only leased the land. And the gentleman that owned Tyson Pontiac Cadillac, Mr. Tyson, bought the land, and the Rosedale Diner got put along 724. And Darrell Hall saw it on the way to Temple University and wrote the song Abandoned Luncheonette, because we know Darrell's from O&J. And that was the original Rosedale Diner that was down between Nagle and Tyson. But it's a long time ago when I worked there, but okay. Yeah, there's a clearer picture of it. And that's, I don't know if it was brand new then. Well, no, there's cars in the window.
Yeah, that's probably pretty new.
Yep. But Mr. Nagle owned it when I still worked there, and Vince Piazza and local banker McNamara, Pete McNamara, they were partners. And Vince was pretty wealthy back then because Vince used to fly in with his helicopter at Limerick and come up to see how business was, and he brought this little boy with him. And when I'm 18 years old, I had everybody should clean the shop, make it perfect because the boss is coming. And that little boy was Mike Piazza, the pitcher. And now I know that, but back then he was just a little 5-year-old kid. Yep. And then Pete and him separated, and Piazza took the Honda, and McNamara took the Subaru down in Limerick. So that's a little history on that.
Bolton Olds was down in there too.
Yeah, Bolton Olds is like what's there now? I guess the bank. Yeah, right. Yeah. Yep. Bolton Olds. I knew them guys very well too. So that's what I mean. We had everything covered. There was no foreign dealerships except for County Line Volkswagen, which is up where Kiefer's is now. But all the Detroit muscle or Detroit cars are right here on High Street. And a lot of these pictures are gas stations that go way back.
I guess Ludwig Motors was an exception to the High Street rule. I mean, he was up there as long as I can remember.
Yes, that was Kraus and Ludwig, and then eventually became Ludwig. And yeah, you're right, but still it was a heavily traveled road, and people drove by and saw a car. That's what I mean about the little complexes we're at today, where you're not really, you got to go there. If you want a car, you're going to go there to buy one. You're not going to drive by and say, oh, look at that little station wagon, or look at that convertible, because nobody goes back in back in there. That's the only thing that, like I said, as a businessman, to me, I would want to be on High Street or a traffic area for hoping that I would catch somebody that would catch their eye. But
Highway took a lot of weight when I did Howard came over the superhighway.
yeah, and the bypass. Yeah.
Actually, Kraus and Ludwig, there was an article from Leroy Kraus in the papers, and he claims that they started selling cars just like that one picture we have down by Harps.
Right.
Taxis. They started selling where the commercial house was, next to where the First Federal was on High Hanover there. That's
Okay.
where they started selling cars along the street.
And that's what a lot of people did back then. They sold them along the street. They sold them. They didn't have showrooms. The building that I'm in now was probably the biggest showroom on High Street. Aside a touch of glass, there's a building right there. When I was a kid, it used to have glass windows in it. Now they boarded them up. That was a Studebaker garage, and then they made ambulances. And all the used cars were on the roof. Yep. There's no macadam, there's no grass, it's building from High Street to alley. There's no place to even park a car other than the street. And there's a ramp out back that went up to the roof. So if you wanted to look at a used car, you went up to the roof.
I remember when that was an Edsel dealership.
Was it?
It was
Yes.
also an Edsel.
Because I had looked.
Arrow Bowling.
Yeah, but that was next door.
That's next door.
Next door, that
That
was
was
the
that
Arrow Bowling.
started out as a dealership.
Did it?
Yeah.
Arrow Bowling? See, I didn't know that.
And I think that building may also have been a Packard dealership if you go back far
Right,
enough.
and there was a Packard.
I think you're right. I think I remember that.
It was no relation, I think it was M.E. Evans or something.
You might be right on that. I remember when I was a kid, it was a machine shop. They did machine work, and the owner displayed his antique cars in the windows. And I'm 5 years old. Until I was 5, I lived in south end of Pottstown, so we'd walk, my mom and I would walk around there. And then we moved to the north end in 1965. So, but I remember seeing those old cars in the window and didn't know, it wasn't a car place. It was just personal cars. But
The Studebaker dealership down there was an offshoot from Kaiser Brothers. When they went fully to Chevrolets, they gave up the Studebakers, and then that's when the Studebaker franchise went down there on High Street.
okay, yeah. When I bought the building, I wanted to know a lot of the history, and I got bits and pieces, but it's not done by any means. This is the original building, and it almost looks exactly the same today, if you look at it. The garage door over here was changed, but I thought this terracotta and all this was added later. No, this is about 1926. And it still looks the same. There's a little conflicting in the stories, but I'll tell you what I know. Back in because they were Studebaker, that's what made me think of this. The paperwork goes back to 1900 to a Sam Kaiser. Well, I knew Sam Kaiser Sr. and I knew Sam Kaiser Jr. So there must have been another Sam Kaiser. The front part of the building, which is the showroom, was originally a horse and buggy house. And we have a picture here of them building it out of wood. In the streets, they had wood piled. Then in 1926, the Kaiser brothers, the one story that I have, went to the bank and asked, it was a Pottstown bank, for $80,000 to build the back. And the bank, the words of this article say the bank president seemed like the Kaiser brothers were a nice bunch of fellas and they were good with fixing cars, so they loaned them the money. Not secured, just on their name, 80 grand. And they built the actual back part is 10,000 square feet, which was huge back then, It's still big today. And it opened up as a Moon dealer. I have a picture of it with Moon, very, very limited, because somewhere in the same year, 1926, it went from Moon to Studebaker. And then they were Studebaker, and they were Studebaker, Oldsmobile, and Chevrolet, but I don't know when. So we'll just say 1930, somewhere in there. And then I read an article that he had given me that they broke off the Studebaker dealership and the Oldsmobile dealership went down. I don't know if it was Bolton's, but it went somewhere else. And then they sold Chevrolet from the 30s all the way up until 2008 when they closed. But it's just amazing to me that the building still looks the same. In the back, I have pictures of it. Do you remember when they used to unveil the cars? You didn't get to see them until they had a big deal. They have pictures of open houses, and they show the back shop. It's the same. The windows, everything is just amazing. The floor, from back in the day. Before I bought this one, I bought Dames or Kaiser's Body Shop on Jefferson Avenue. And I had an interesting story. A guy came in and told me, he said it was 1959, and they used to hide the new cars over at the body shop so they wouldn't be seen by the public. and his kid and him peeked through the window, and there was a 59 Impala in there, and it was uncovered, and they saw the big fins, and they just like remarked like, oh my gosh, this thing is, what is this, you know? And that Saturday or the following Saturday, in the dealership, there was a copper and beige 59 Impala unveiled, and Larry Ferrari was there to play the organ, and they gave away free hot dogs and balloons and all that stuff. I don't know when they stopped doing that, but if anybody could tell me, in like the early 60s, mid-60s, they stopped doing that. But in the 50s, it was a big deal to see the new body style. And I actually wound up, long story, but I'll condense it. I chased a 59 Impala, meaning that I tried to buy it for 16 years. I finally wound up buying the car before I bought this building, and the car was sold here new. So I own a 59 Impala. It's not one of the ones that were on display, but I own a 59 Impala that was actually sold at Kaisers in 1959, which is, you know, kind of, yeah, it's kind of, never expected that my whole life to happen. It just happened that way, you know. And the thing about back then, I mean, today we have technology. I know that. But 1959, I can give you some numbers. My car's engine was cast January 4th, 1959. That means it was molten metal in Tonawanda, New York. They ran every engine. Okay, they delivered that engine to Baltimore, Maryland. It was installed in the car, and the guy I bought it from took delivery January 31st. Now, think about that. I mean, they had 8 plants back then. And people don't realize that General Motors owned glass plants, chrome plants, bumper plants. They made all their own stuff, not like today where they buy it. And back then, without CAD, without air-conditioned trucks, without computers, without cell phones, they were able to deliver a car in less than a month. Every hour, a 59 Chevy came off the assembly line. It's 1959. That's amazing to me, you know, if you read this stuff like I do, and, you know. No, but, you know, it's just, you know, like I said, how far did we really come? This 1959 Impala, which has no plastic on it, okay, weighs 3,600 pounds. It gets about 20 miles to the gallon. Nowadays, the new Chargers are 4,600 pounds, you know. It just, and they're loaded with plastic and aluminum. It's just the evolution of the automobile sometimes is interesting to, you know, see how far did we come, you know. But, yep.
What kind of gas do you put in that 59 Impala?
That's a good question. A regular unleaded. Yep, yeah. There wasn't unleaded. Now, going far back, a question I had, a better question, is somebody said, what kind of gas do I run in my Model A? Unleaded. Because they didn't start putting lead in until the 40s and 50s to raise the octane and to lubricate. Now, me personally, all my cars, all of them, I don't put any additives in, and I just run unleaded. And they're all old cars that you hear about the valves burning, you hear all this stuff. I don't think that, I mean, my experience as a mechanic, I've never had one come in the shop. Because people will actually take their motors apart and put modern valves in them so it can run on unleaded. But me personally, I don't put any stable in them. I don't put any additives in them. I just run, you know, premium or mid-grade unleaded, and I've never, and all my customers, I've never, you know, but a lot of guys, you know, rebuild the motors today to accept unleaded. But yeah, an older guy at one of the shows said about my Model A, I said, well, you remember white gas? That was before lead. You know, so that's what you put in your Model A. But now the higher octane engines, you do have to put a little. If you have a, you know, a high compression engine, you should put a little octane booster in it. But as far as the other cars, no. But another cool picture we have here, and I know you have a better picture, I just saw it, was Pottstown Auto Refinishing. Just a small picture there. Yep, and then we have that other shot of the inside. And this is a shot of the inside of it. There it is. There's a photo of it. I mean, look how cool that is, all the tires and stuff. Now, if anybody knows, this is down, I'm not sure what the side street is. It was down on High Street, and now it's the Hill School Garage. Green Street, that it? Yep, that closed, and that now is the Hill School Garage. I guess they keep trucks and equipment and stuff in there. But when I was a kid, that was the place you went to get your front end aligned. The old guy there was a whiz at lining front ends. And a really cool garage. I always wanted wanted to work there when I was a kid. Eppenheimer. That's correct. And his son was Bob Eppenheimer, the guy that he was real famous on WPAZ for years. And Bob was actually a customer of mine way back, you know. And that was his son, Eppenheimer's Garage. And he was, he had, you know, like, he wanted to be a radio guy. He didn't want to work in the family business, you know. But anyhow, down near where the brick house is now, near the Schuler house. Anybody remember the Schuler house? That's where this B.F. Goodrich tire place was. It was kind of, well, I'm not exactly sure, but it was between the brick house and the Schuler house.
It was right on the end at the, where you go back to the, where you would have went back to the concourse.
Where the parking lot?
To the train station.
Okay.
It was right on the
It was
end
right
of
on
the
the
Schuler
end.
house there.
It was a neat looking place too. The old oil cans and B.F. Goodrich tires, batteries. I guess it was a retail location. I mean, it wasn't a garage per se.
Yeah.
In the back, maybe?
Yeah, in the back they did tire work and stuff like that.
Okay.
There was an auto dealer there too.
Yeah.
Sidney
yeah,
Chaplin.
Sidney.
Oh yeah, I remember that name. I didn't know that
In the
though.
back of the,
But anyhow, we got a lot of good pictures here of Pottstown with all the automotive history, all the dealerships. I'm looking for one here. Oh, this is a picture of Kaisers Used Car Lot, which was, well, let's, I guess you guys probably know where the National Bank of Boyertown just closed. Way back, that was Potts' house before he built the house out on near Route 100. I have a picture of that at home. Across the street from that, which is now Wells Fargo, was a bank, and then aside of that was a Kaisers Used Car Lot and a produce place that sold watermelons and stuff on the street. Probably a potato market, because then they moved across the street. But anyway, yep. But anyway, this was Kaisers Used Car Lot. I'm not sure what year. I mean, the cars are 30s, so I'm going to say early 40s. Then Kaisers Used Car Lot moved to where the hospital is now. And there was a big gully there, the new hospital. And there was a big gully there. And Mr. Dames, who bought the dealership, told me this story. He said he worked there at the car lot and parked one of the cars and didn't have it in gear, and it rolled down into the gully. And he got mad, and he said, that's it, I'm not working at the used car lot no more. And he came up here and sold new cars. And then now Dames, or Kaisers, had 3 properties. They had the body shop, they had this shop, and they had now where Hertz Rent-A-Car is. That was their used car lot. But before they were there, they were at the hospital, where Hertz is and 7-Eleven, I believe, was the trolley house that stored the trolleys for High Street. And then I guess they closed the trolley house, and Kaisers bought that property and moved their used car lot from there up to there. Yep, and when I was a kid, that hospital lot was empty all the time. It was never anything until the hospital. So I don't know if they tore down the buildings and filled it in or whatever, but that, like I said, when the trolley stopped running, and they sold the trolley house, 7-Eleven bought the one piece of property, and Kaisers bought the other one for their used cars and moved it up there. And then at that time, Jerry Dames' brother ran the, Ed Dames, he ran the used car lot, and Jerry was up here for the Kaisers. And then when Mr. Kaiser passed away in 1982, Dames bought the business from them and, you know, operated everything. Okay, thank you everybody for tuning in to another episode of Car Stories here on PCTV. And don't forget our sponsor, Eastwood, up on Shoemaker Road. If you need any automotive tools, paint, go to Eastwood, up on Shoemaker Road in Pottstown. And I hope you enjoyed our show tonight here at the Pottstown Historical Society, and we'll see you next month. I'm Mike Yannessa. Goodbye.